All right, back to it now here on a Tuesday. It's going to be the State of the Union coming up, right? Well, I guess it's a joint session of Congress. I'm going to call it State of the Union, though he's been president before. But starting tomorrow, 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada go into effect. Tariffs on China, 20%, due to their failure to address fentanyl coming into the United States. So I guess it's not going to be a theory anymore. It's going to be what it really happens and how it works. Dr. Peter Earle is the Director of Economics and Economic Freedom and a Senior Research Fellow who joined AIER in 2018. He joins me now. Doctor, nice to have you on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's not going to be some theory anymore, is it? It's going to be the real deal, Doctor. We're going to find out. Is it going to create problems on that side of the border, this side of the border? Is it going to increase prices for American consumers? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, not a theory anymore. I mean, we had some tariffs during the first Trump administration on China, and most of those were actually kept in place by the Biden administration, something they don't want you to know probably. But I mean, these are, at that time, the weighted average was about 3%, and it was on a very narrow group of goods. It was on some agricultural goods, things like that. But this new leg of this new campaign, if you will, of the tariff war contemplates taxes on or tariffs rather, there are taxes, but tariffs on a very wide range of goods and services, and not just on China, but also on Mexico and Canada, and of a higher level. They're going from about 3% to about 10%, and eventually the idea is that there'll be a 25% on Canada and Mexico, including things like crude oil, and on Chinese goods to go from 10 to 20%, and maybe even eventually on EU goods. And then also there's a concept of retaliatory tariffs, which Trump has spoken about. So we're in a full-blown trade war as of this morning.
Yeah. It's not rudimentary to find out. So we're going to find out. Look, tariffs have been around for a long time. There's a reason that Japanese pickup trucks are built in America. It's because of a tariff that was put into place in the 1960s by President Johnson, a 25% tariff on light pickup trucks, right? So that's why Nissan and Toyota build here and not elsewhere. So what Donald Trump says is all he wants the tariffs to do is to force people to build and create here in America. Is that a possible outcome then?
It is a possible outcome, but the thing is that there's this there's a truism that's been around for some time called the law of comparative advantage, which says that even if the U.S. could make all of its own goods, we probably shouldn't. We should specialize. Other nations should specialize, and we should trade. But the thing is, by trying to bring more goods and services back to the U.S., it's going to change that balance. We may be making things, or we may wind up making things here that we shouldn't be because they might be of lower quality or whatever. And I mean, the natural order comes about by a process known as spontaneous order. And by trying to sort of rejigger that with tariffs, there's likely to be some distortions, and it's going to be very costly for consumers in the short term.
Right, but right now with the EU, for example, there are asymmetrical tariffs costing America about $200 billion a year. There are asymmetrical tariffs with Mexico, Canada, China, certainly. We're on the and Japan, without question. We're on the wrong end of all of those. Is Donald Trump right about at least this thing? We're getting screwed.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll use the example of India. In India, certain goods that we export to India, they have a 17% tariff on, where we have a 3% tariff on theirs.
Like what?
Sorry?
What items?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure that. They might be machine parts, but I do know that theirs on ours is 17%, ours on theirs is 3%. And what Trump intends to do is bring ours to 17% to do one of two things: either make them pay, or force them to open up their markets more to ours. So, I mean, that's the retaliatory tariff thing, and that will be after he decides on EU tariffs. Yeah, I mean, certainly there's an argument for that. It has to do with, even-handed trade. But I mean, my personal view is that we should trade as freely as we can with the rest of the world. And if there are barriers that they put on our goods and services, it should be their consumers who feel it. So it's let's hope that this gets resolved pretty quickly, because we already have a slowdown in the economy with consumption and all that. And I'm hoping that this doesn't push us into a recession if it goes on for too long.
Well, the recession was already predicted by most. I mean, it's coming. I mean, recessions are
inevitably it will, right?
I mean, periodically you have recessions, right? I mean, that's the way it works. That's the way the economy was. That's the economy that Donald Trump inherited. Of course, that won't be the headline for the left. Of course, it'll be, oh, Donald Trump killed the economy, but he was handed what he was handed, and maybe the tariffs amplify some of that. Maybe they don't. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What's going to be the takeaway on all of this, Doctor?
Yeah, it's certainly not going to help. But I mean, the thing is, there's a view that if you want to get improvement in the economy, if you want to get to work through some of the excesses, like the massive government spending over the last 4 years, some of the distortions, because some states are still getting, COVID money, all that sort of thing, we might have to face a rough patch in the short term, and that might involve a recession. And from that perspective, I would look at a recession not as a negative thing, but as sort of a way of cleaning out the excess, a way of cleaning out the overhang and the detritus, so that we can start in fresher soil.
Yeah. What do you think's gonna? When do you think? How long will this last to get somebody's attention? I mean, Canada can sit there and pound its chest about bourbon or timber or whatever. Look, Canada cannot stand up to tariffs in the United States. I don't believe. They're too small. There's only 30 million people there, or 35. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
Well, they play a very big role in our auto manufacturing. They have something like $150 billion a week or something like that comes in for auto parts. So we're definitely going to see it in car prices in the short term. We also do a lot of oil trade with Canada. But
here's the thing about, hold on. Here's the thing about energy. We don't need Canadian energy. We choose to do that. If it forces us to produce more energy here at home, I support that, because we have North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Alaska, Texas, Pennsylvania, and Wyoming. I mean, we can get energy from all these energy states. We don't need to import any energy. It's a choice we make, and it's a bad one in my estimation. I'll give you an answer on that.
We're a net energy exporter right now for the first time in a long time, because we have tons of oil from the shale states, as you mentioned, the Permian Basin. So there's certainly that. But I mean, the other things like car parts and all that sort of thing, timber, that could make home prices, which are already elevated, a lot more expensive. So, I mean, it depends what you think is more important.
Well, we should lower regulation on timbering operations in this country, which have been under attack my entire adult life. Timbering in this country has been under attack for what was that owl out in Oregon, whatever the hell it was called, some little owl.
The spotted owls.
Yeah, that thing. Look, it put thousands of people out of work, and we have more timber than Canada. That's a fact. Between Alaska and the rest of this country, we don't need their timber. We just need to develop the industries. That's my take on it. Anyhow, I'll give you the last. I'm not trying to be confrontational, but I'm saying, look, we have one thing America has more than the rest of the world is natural resources, be it timber, fresh water, farmland, metal. It doesn't matter. We have it in spades. It's just a matter of whether we decide to use it or not. I'll give you the last word.
No, it's very true. We could be more self-dependent, but I mean, to some extent, again, if we were to do all of these things on our own, it would be costly, and we might not be the best ones to do it. But what you say about oil, certainly we could pump and use more of our own oil.
Sure.
In the short term, though, tariffs are going to cause a lot of expense and probably a lot of pain for American consumers.
Well, Dr. Earle, I greatly appreciate you being here and having a good perspective and great experience. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly appreciate it. Good conversation there. Tariffs, work, won't work? I don't know yet. We're going to find out. I'll be right back.